So this is called the exclusive economy. Some of you might already know what I'm talking about. Some of you understand that there's to be a mark of the beast and that no man might buy or sell save he that has the mark. But we're going to go into this a lot more with respect to Bible prophecy today. I've got my Bible out here. I've also got some slides. Last week, just briefly, I wanted to talk about this point here, that there's no wall, no freedom. This is Thomas Jefferson. He's one of the founders of America, and he said erecting the wall of separation between the church and state is absolutely essential in a free society. And the only way that there can be freedom is to keep the church out of the state's business. And because of what happened during the Dark Ages, they put a clause in the Constitution to keep the state and the church from being able to erect laws that would force worship in certain ways. And we've seen this in the books of the Bible. This is where you can learn it. You can go to the book of Daniel, particularly, where the king Nebuchadnezzar would often force people to worship a certain way. King Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel chapter 1 tried to force people to put something in their bodies that was contrary to their conscience, contrary to their belief system. And he tried to force them to eat unclean meats and drink the wine of Babylon. And it didn't go well. And Daniel stood up for his conscience, just as God's people will in this last day. They're trying to force us to put things like pharmakeia into our bodies these days. Now, secondly, there was Daniel chapter 3, where Nebuchadnezzar erected a giant golden statue and then tried to force Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to bow down and worship. But this is a church and state union. This is forced worship according to the kings of the earth, uniting with the kings of the earth. And this is church and state. And this is why a wall was given to keep freedom in the United States. But this wall is going to be broken down in the United States of America. And there's going to be forced worship of some sort. That's what we're told in the Bible. And I'd like to continue a little bit. Mike Johnson. We just talked about him being elected as the speaker. And what does he say about the wall of separation? Let's just hear what he says.
But Jefferson clearly did not mean that metaphorical wall was to keep religion from influencing issues of civil government. To the contrary, it was meant to keep the federal government from impeding the religious practice of citizens.
Yeah.
The founders wanted to protect the church from an encroaching state, not the other way around.
Oh. Okay, so what did we see during the Dark Ages? Wasn't it a church that got the power of the state in order to enforce their religious observances? Of course it was. So what does Mike Johnson know? Does he really know history, or is he misunderstanding history? Does he understand why the wall of separation was really put in the Constitution? This is the Speaker of the House again. This is now the third most powerful man in the world, and second in line to the presidency in the United States, right? So he has a lot of power in this world, and he does not understand why there is a separation of church and state. And he also is in charge of Congress of the United States. That is the people who are to uphold the Constitution, particularly the First Amendment and the laws of the Constitution. And he's not doing so. Now, this is in Congress only this week, and I want you just to hear some of this and just to think whether or not this is against your religious right. Let's just listen carefully. Mr. Garcia, Mike Garcia of California.
Do you think it advances the cause of religious freedom for a member of Congress to claim that the Catholic Church, of which I'm a member of, is controlled by Satan?
I think that kind of rhetoric really is a threat to religious freedom. I think we have to understand that words matter, and it's particularly concerning when it comes from a member of government. I think one of the protections that we have in the United States, and again, we are the envy of the world in many ways, and the legal protections we have for religious freedom is that our government stays neutral when it comes to religion.
Ooh, okay, so you cannot even speak. This is a protection of the First Amendment. The First Amendment includes freedom of speech. And if a Congress member wants to say that the state and the church should not be united, or that the Catholic Church is from Satan, they have the right to that freedom to speak according to their understanding, their conscience. If something's from Satan, it's from Satan. According to the book of Revelation, chapter 13, as most of you know, the beast, which is the papacy, was like unto a leopard, his feet as the feet of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion. It says the dragon gave him his power, seat, and great authority. And when you understand who the dragon is, Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 says this. It tells us the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So where did the papacy get his power from? He get his power from Satan. It's satanic. And so to say it's satanic, though, is apparently a threat to religious liberty now. And we're speaking against the papacy is to say it's a threat to religious liberty. But I want to share with you something, because as well, we know that I believe this is America, another beast coming up out of the earth. He had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Well, he's lamb-like in regards to the Constitution, which declared freedom of religious liberty. And then eventually that freedom was gone. It becomes more like a Chinese communist state where you can't speak what you believe, dragon-like, as you might call it. But anyways,
Do you think
continuing on, this is what's happening in America. And last week I shared about what was happening in America with relation to these things, the Constitution, and how they are standing up to form something very like the papacy, an image of the beast, so to say, with apostate Protestant religions. Now, in Revelation chapter 17, we read of this Babylon, the great, the mother of harlots, in Revelation 17:5, and it tells us of this woman, and she has one great sin here, the great whore. And it says, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. And it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Here we have a symbol symbolizing church and state. The woman, of course, symbolizes the church, the kings of the earth, the state. And it says, the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. This Babylonian idea of church and state has been around for centuries, for millenniums. And it's nothing new under the sun. The thing that has been is the thing that is. And of course, just as in Revelation 13, they're going to force us to worship an image very similar. They set up an image of the beast, and then they force worship, which is none other than a church and state union taking place. And so in America, they're forming this church and state union. They're trying to rewrite history. And in Revelation 17, speaking of the papacy, it tells us she is the mother church, the mother of harlots. And so she has many daughters. And she is also the mother of abominations. And Jesus told us to watch for something at the end of the world. He said, you are to know and understand when you see the abomination that maketh desolate. Now, there's a particular abomination that fills her cup with abominations, filthiness of her fornication. That is the blood of martyrs. And that has to do with her church and state union. And Revelation 17:16 tells us that the 10 horns, which verse 12 tells us are 10 kings, these shall hate the whore and make her desolate. And Jesus said, watch for the abomination that maketh desolate. And then they eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So as God's people, we need to be discerning to understand the abomination that maketh desolate. We need to understand, of course, what her abominations are. You go to Ezekiel 16, show Jerusalem her abominations. And it says, because she's played the harlot. And why is she burnt with fire? What would happen to Judea in 70 AD? Jesus said, watch, no, understand why she's going to be burnt with fire, because she is playing the harlot. You can read this in the law of God in the book of Leviticus, chapter 21 and verse 9. It tells you that the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, she shall be burnt with fire. That's the judgment. That was the judgment for playing the whore, which is fornication with the kings of the earth, which is church and state union. And so when we see this, we can know she would be judged. And we've seen this quite frequently lately. But in Revelation 14, it tells us we're to know that the hour of his judgment is come, and we're to give a message about the hour of his judgment and that call to worship the true God. But there's another angel that follows saying Babylon is fallen, that great city. And he wants to show us the judgment of the great whore who sits upon many waters. And why is she judged? Well, because all nations made her drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Church and state union. That's what causes the judgment to come. When you see a church and state union, you are to give a call, a loud cry with a loud voice. Revelation 18 tells us that all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. So when you see this church and state union, it says there's another voice coming from heaven saying, come out of her, my people. And what does Jesus say? When you see the abomination that make it desolate, come out of her, my people. Flee out of Judea, flee out of Babylon. Is very similar message. Just what happened in Judea was a small sample of what is going to happen at the end of the world. And all the nations are involved in what is taking place here. And I'm going to get to that today and share with you how this is all taking place. Now, the Pope has just told us that he will attend COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai. And this is a first by a pontiff. This has never happened before. What does this imply about these state leaders? Is that they want to bring a religious power into the state power and unite fornication with the kings of the earth. Here's we have the papacy gaining more and more power. Where does the papacy get its power? Where was Jesus offered the power from? Jesus was on the mount and Satan said, all these kingdoms will I give you if you'll bow down and worship me. It's from Satan. Ultimately, it's from Satan, because Satan has power over the kings of this world. And he was given that by Adam. Adam forfeited dominion and gave it to Satan when he sinned, right? But here we have the Pope. He says he will attend COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai, a first by pontiff. Now, what are these kings of the earth offering to the Pope? The same thing that was offered to Satan, to Jesus, sorry. He offers to the Pope is offering, the Pope is being offered all the kingdoms of the world. All these kingdoms will I give you if you'll bow down and worship me. And so he's attending the COP Climate Summit in Dubai. I'm going to share more about this as we continue, but there's some things I want you to understand before we go down this list of things to understand. This is coming this month here. But Pope Francis to attend COP28 Climate Change Conference in Dubai in December. That's coming. And COP28 president designate meets with Pope Francis, that was this week, to discuss common climate goals. They've got a bunch of goals that they want to set. And I'm going to share with you, this is very, very, very deep in regards to Bible prophecy here. But what do these climate goals have to do with? What is it that is coming to pass here? Well, we read a little bit here, and it says the COP28 presidency will also co-host the Faith Pavilion at COP28, marking the first ever pavilion of its kind at a COP event. So there's going to be a Faith Pavilion at a COP event. And what does he say? I want to thank the Vatican under your papacy for its work in advocating for a higher ambition on climate action and social justice. Your update of the 2015 Laudato Si on care for a common home to bring up to date is truly inspiring. We aim to ensure that COP28 amplifies the call for action for religious leaders, and we plan to do this through the Global Faith Leaders Summit in Abu Dhabi, Al-Jaber said. That's the president of the COP28. Now, update of Laudato Si, which is Laudato Deum. Some of you have heard of the new encyclical that the Pope has come up with, and I'll share a little bit more as we continue with regards to what that is. But the COP president designate engages with Pope Francis, raising ambition and driving positive outcomes for climate action to advance human progress. And this is what they're telling us, to further the role of faith communities in the COP process. COP28 presidency has designed a series of interfaith initiatives in the run-up to and during the conference. One of the key initiatives will be a global summit for faith leaders, the Confluence of Conscience, which will take place November 6th and 7th in Abu Dhabi. And guess when that is? That's only 2 days from now. It will unite hundreds of religious leaders, academics, and scientists to collectively address the findings of the global stocktake and sign a declaration to progress climate action at COP28. So this is all coming together to unite, to bring forth something on COP28 with regards to the climate. And it all connects to, well, we'll share, we'll get to what it's going to connect to here. But Pope Francis may attend global climate talks in Dubai. It'll be the first time a Pope has attended a UN climate conference. This is what's going on right now. This is big news for those who understand Bible prophecy. Pope Francis wrote a second part of Laudato Si, mentioned on Monday, will focus on climate crisis, but it's also focused on all the recent events that have taken place. That's what this new Laudato Deum has to do with is the recent climate issues. And what do we know about this? Well, I'm going to share with you from the Great Controversy. Ellen G. White wrote this several years ago, 100 years ago. She said, Satan works through the elements, this climate, also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls. He has studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature, and he uses all in his power to control the elements as far as God allows. Satan has control of all whom God does not especially guard. He will favor and prosper some in order to further his own designs, and he will bring trouble upon others and lead men to believe that it is God who is afflicting them. Has he done this? Do we look around and we not see, like, it's believed that he's doing all this, and then he's trying to make it out that it's God? And then what is he going to do? Let's continue on. I'll share with you. But he's definitely studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature quite a bit, right? Genetically modified mosquitoes, more than that, right? You can see what he's holding in his hand. But while appearing to the children of men as a great physician, doesn't he? Right? Yeah, I've got the cure for this COVID-19, don't I? But he appears to the children as a great physician. This is Great Controversy 589. Who can heal all their maladies. He will bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Some of you understand the depopulation agenda, right? But even now he is at work in accidents and calamities by sea and by land in great conflagrations. That's fires. We see these fires, like some of you have seen what recently happened in Hawaii. In fierce tornadoes, terrific hailstorms and tempest, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes, in every place in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air a deadly taint. Well, I think that's happening in different places, and thousands perish by pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast. And then what happens? What does she say happens next? Well, we see the great conflagration. We see all these things, but what is happening next? Remember, the Pope is reminding us, hey, look at all these things that are happening right now, these climate problems that are happening. And he's pointing to them as great climate issues. But then we read, she says that the great deceiver will persuade men that those who serve God are causing these evils. That would be you and me and others, right? But the class that have provoked the displeasure of heaven will charge all their troubles upon those whose obedience to God's commandment is a perpetual reproof of transgressors. It will be declared that men are offending God by the violation of the Sunday Sabbath, that this sin has brought calamities which will not cease until Sunday observance shall be strictly enforced. So what's coming out of all this is forced Sunday observance. And I'm going to share with you a little bit, but this is Laudato Si here, and this is the Pope, and he talks about Sunday. He says, Sunday, like the Jewish Sabbath, is meant to be a day which heals our relationship with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the world. Sunday is the day of the resurrection, the first day of the new creation. I have a lot of evidence to show. I'm not going to show it all today, but to show, obviously, there is Sunday laws that are working in darkness, and this is part of it. Laudato Si. The papacy claims that the Catholic Church claims the change from Saturday Sabbath to Sunday was her act, and she says that this act is a mark of her ecclesiastical authority in religious things. Sunday is our mark of authority. The church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath is observance is proof of that fact. Excuse me. So Sabbath observance, changing the Sabbath to Sunday, is her mark of authority, she claims. She tells us this mark. Now in Revelation chapter 13, we read about the beast and a mark that she has. And regarding this mark is to be enforced. It says that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And I can go into the number and the name and all this other stuff and what it symbolizes, but the mark of the beast, the papacy, is Sunday. And as you see here, COP 27, this was last year COP from November 6th to 18th. I don't know if you'll notice here, but there is some symbols in this logo from COP 27 from Egypt, where they claim to be Mount Sinai. And what did they receive at Mount Sinai? Well, they received the 10 Commandments. And of course, There is now 10 climate commandments. I'll share with you a little bit about this. COP27, you can see sun worship is depicted here in this image. COP27, again, another sun worship image. These are sun worshiping things, and you can see the hands and the logo here. It's Aten, the sun god. But this is ultimately from ancient Babylonian worship. This is Babylonian sun god worship. And that's where it ultimately comes from. So when you look at the logo for COP27 from last year in Egypt, 2022, now we've got 2023, and they're not only following up this sun worshiping COP27, but we've got COP28 with Pope Francis coming to COP28. Interesting how this all works. You see, we're moving forward. But COP27, Pope Francis invites Christians to a month of ecological conversion. That was last year. Ecological conversion to his religion, his sun god religion. Let's keep going. For our sin of emissions, this is actually Newsweek magazine, our sin of emissions, 10+1 climate commandments. Climate commandments, as if they have a religion of a sort with their own commandments. And what were those commandments including? In Newsweek magazine, we read that one of those commandments has to do with keeping the Sabbath day. Interesting. Which day is the Sabbath, though? Was it Sunday? You know, who's COP27? Who do you think it is that they're going to, what day do you think they're going to force? Well, emissions are down 30% over the Sabbath every week in Israel and are almost zeroed out on Yom Kippur, which is the Jewish Day of Atonement. A global weekly non-carbon day of rest could reduce emissions of the world by 1/7 and can be observed by different faith communities on different days. Well, of course, it's going to start that way, but where's it going to move eventually? What have we been told in Bible prophecy? What do we understand is the mark of the beast? You know, if the papacy is involved in all of this, they forced Sunday laws throughout history. We can read about it with Constantine in the history of the church. Now, of course, what do you think is going to happen in the end, right? But next we have down at the bottom, honor Mother Earth. Well, that's one of the climate commandments, honor Mother Earth. You shall not innovate, you need not covet. Honor Mother Earth is one of the climate commandments. Is this not a false religion? Sun worship religion. I'll come to this. I'll get to the Mother Earth thing here as we go. But the rise of the ancient Egyptian dynasties, this is what Newsweek tells us, coincided with the rise of the worship of Ra, the sun god. A new era of renewables must shine out of Egypt this November, or our civilization like that of the ancient Egyptians will be doomed. When religious leaders of all faiths ascend Mount Sinai on November 13th during COP27. Ooh, we are moving forward here. But I just want to share with you this Ra, sun god worship. Where did this all really originate? This all really originates way back in the time of ancient Babylon. The Trinity, which is the foundation of the Catholic Church, the very foundation of it is the Trinity. And this is basically originates from ancient Babylon. The Trinity got its start in ancient Babylon with Nimrod, Tammuz, and Semiramis. Semiramis, her name also is, she's named many names. She's called the goddess, mother goddess. And she's the mother of Tammuz. She was the wife of Nimrod. Nimrod is the founder of Babel. And Semiramis demanded worship for both her husband and her son, as well as herself. She claimed that her son was both the father and the son when her husband died. Yes, he was God the Father and God the Son, the first divine and incomprehensible Trinity. And this comes from where? The two Babylons, Alexander Hislop, page 51. But it says, you know, if you look at all the history of all these ancient religions, in Egypt, their trinity became Osiris, Horus, and Isis. In Greece, it was Zeus, Apollo, and Athena. In India, it was Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. In Rome, it was Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. In the Catholic Church, it's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And in most churches today, what have they adopted today? Have they not adopted this? See, I'm going to go to the book of Daniel, chapter 11. I'm going to share with you where the Trinity is talked about in the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 11, talking about this king. In verse 31 and 36, it says, this king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself, magnify himself above every god, speak marvelous things against the God of gods. Who is this man that speaks great things against the God of gods and exalts himself? Well, Paul the apostle knew he was. He's called the man of sin, inspired by Satan, as the Bible says, right? Despite the fact that Congress says we're against religious liberty for saying so. But the idea here is that he speaks marvelous things against the God of gods. Daniel 7:25 tells us about this man who speaks great things against the God of gods. He says, he shall speak great words against the Most High, shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. That's the papacy. He thinks to change times and laws. He thinks he changed the Sabbath. He thinks he changed God's feast days into holy days that he calls holy days. But go back to Daniel 11:36. This man who speaks these great things against the God of gods thinks to change times and laws. It says, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women. Well, we know about the papacy's desire for women and other things like that, right? It's more like little boys. But anyways, he shall magnify himself above all. Again, this is who Paul was talking about when he says, don't be deceived. Understand that the man of sin is still to come. This man of sin who exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. But this man of sin shall honor the God of forces, the God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold, silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. He shall exalt this God. What God is the God that he exalted? It's the most exalted Trinity. I'm going to go back here. I want to share with you more. This is who's been exalted by the Catholic Church. It is the most exalted Trinity. I'll come back to this, but I want to share with you about Gaia, Mother Earth, or Isis. Some might call her Mother Mary, but you'll see this Mother Earth, Gaia. Check out this coin here. This coin is a Vatican coin, and you'll notice on the coin that the mother on the coin, she has in her hands, it's a symbol of the earth. You can see Africa formed on it and stuff like that. It's the earth. This is Mother Earth. And if you look at the side, you go to the word Vaticano. It actually translates in a Latin dictionary to prophecy. And the word Città del Vaticano on that coin means city of prophecy in English. City of prophecy. And this woman is the city of prophecy. Do we know of a woman that is a city of prophecy in the Bible? What woman is the city of prophecy in the Bible? I'm just going to go to my Bible for a quick second just to look it up. Let's just look it up again. We'll go back to Revelation 17 and just find this woman that is a city of prophecy. It says in verse 18 that the woman, which you saw, is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. That's the city of prophecy right there. This is the one that's spoken about. We know in Revelation 17:5 that her name is Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. Mother Earth, mother harlots, this mother is none other than the mother of harlots. It's the symbol of the papacy. And she's also symbolized by Mother Earth, Gaia, Isis, ancient Babylonian sun worship. This is where it all comes from. And this is where your Trinity comes from as well. Ancient Babylonian sun worship. This is why they worship the Trinity. And these, if you look up the word Gaia, Isis, Ishtar, you look up the name, it's the fertility goddess. Ishtar is short for Easter. Easter. What do we celebrate Easter for? Right? And the woman has, and what are the Easter eggs? Easter eggs. Does a bunny make eggs? Eggs symbolize fertility. That's why Ishtar is the fertility goddess. This all revolves around Tammuz. You know, Tammuz's birthday is December 25th. Go look up, Google Tammuz's birthday. Just put it in Google right now and see what you find. And it'll just pop up, December 25th. But anyways, ancient Babylonian fertility goddess. The wife of Nimrod, mother of Tammuz, both of whom have been deified. This trinity of gods originated in ancient Babylon. The names have been changed in every language, which is what I was sharing here. This is what we have. We have all these different gods, goddesses, etc. But it's the same religion moved through all the religions. When the Tower of Babel was they dispersed into different languages in the world, and we came up with all these religions. And they're all the same. They're all the same. Same religion. And that is what the papacy is, Sunday worship. That's why they can all unite as one and be united, and yet you wouldn't even know they're united because they all look like they're different religions. But the reality is they're all the same religion. It doesn't matter if you're into spiritualism or if you're into Eastern Hinduism or whatever you're into, they're all united. And Catholicism and apostate Protestantism and all these things. And they are totally united. So this is what's going on. This is why this religion here is the same religion as in ancient Babylon. This mother with a crown and this son with a crown, ancient Babylon. But coming back to Pope Francis once said, he said, curse my mother and expect a punch. Well, what mother is he referring to here? Mother Mary, mother Babylon, maybe mother, let's just look. Let's look. Laudato Si. We'll look at Laudato Si. He says, praise be to you, my Lord. He's quoting actually St. Francis, whom he named himself after. In the words of this beautiful canticle, St. Francis of Assisi reminds us that our common home is like a sister with whom we share our life, and a beautiful mother who opens arms to embrace us. Praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us and who produces various fruit with colored flowers and herbs. Praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth. So where does this Mother Earth worship ultimately come from? It's come from ancient Babylonian pagan religions that are given. But here he says that Mother Earth, in his encyclical to the environment, is a big part of his religion. And if you curse his mother, you can expect a punch, he says. Let's be careful of what religion this really is. Gaia, Ishtar, City of Vatican. I'm just going over some of these things just so you can see. It's all connected to each other, right? And if you look at the new coins, such as I was going to bring out some of the other coins of City of Prophecy, it'll have Babylon sitting on top of the kings of the earth. But this is a prophetic call for climate justice and ceremony of repentance. That was what they said COP27 was. You can see the hands there. With the hands are formed like a trinity. You see these triune gods, the 666, the interlaced sixes and other things like that. Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development. You see the symbol. It's a 666 symbol. I could get it out. But it's a prophetic call for climate justice. It's a trinity, and the trinity has the triquetra, 3 6s interlocked as well, right? That is the symbol. But in this spirit, the project partners will bring together premier religious leaders from the world's major religions to gather upon Mount Sinai to engage in a first ever climate repentance ceremony and to put forth a prophetic interreligious call to action, climate justice, 10 universal commandments. So 10 commandments, climate justice. And this we've already talked about. Their 10 commandments include Sabbath keeping, but Sunday is, of course, the day in which they are to gather. And then, of course, they have Mother Earth, worship of the Trinity. These two things are big parts of their religion. Laudato Diem and COP28, 1 week after the publication of Pope Francis' new apostolic exhortation, we published a reflection from the Observatore Romano on the link between Laudato Diem and the upcoming UN Climate Change Conference, COP28. You think they're not working on this for a while together? They've been working on this for a while. They have the plans, and the plans are in place. And there is a connection, a link between Mother and the kings of the earth. She wants to use the kings of the earth to enforce her state religion. It says in the short, intense papal document, many passages in this Laudato Diem refer to the next conference of the parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP28, which will take place in Dubai from 30th of November to December 12th, 2023. 198 countries have joined the convention, including the Holy See. On Wednesday, 11th of October, the president-designate of COP28, His Excellency Dr. Sultan Amber El Jaber, was received by the Holy Father. Now, we could go on here. I'm not going to read more of it, but you understand where this is going here, is that the United Nations, partaking with the papacy, are working together to implement this new plan. I'm going to share a little bit of this new plan as we continue. This is the Pope. This is the El Jaber. These people are gathered together for discussing the moves for COP28 with the United Nations intact, the UN Climate Change Conference of Parties. Now, this is the Pope. These are the steps of the Pope right here. And up above, you'll see this satanic imagery up above. It's actually called the Serpent's Hall. This is where the Pope sits, and the steps there are right there. And above is this Luciferian picture of this, some kind of demon. But it's the mouth of the serpent. You'll notice it's right in the mouth. You can see the fangs here where the papacy's sitting in the midst of it, and this demon in the middle. You know, you read the Bible, and it's interesting, the book of Revelation, chapter 12, it talks about the earth was helped by the woman. The earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood the dragon cast out of his mouth. What's the dragon casting out of his mouth? Well, the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood. After the woman, you go to Revelation 16, you'll see a little bit more understanding of this. It says, I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. They are spirits of devils, demons, satanic spirits. So what's coming out of the mouth here of this serpent? What are you seeing coming out of the mouth in these pictures? Does anybody see what's coming out of the mouth of the dragon here in this picture, a serpent's hall at the Vatican? You guys see it? Demons? You see spirits of devils coming out of the mouth of the dragon, that old serpent. Hopefully you guys are all paying attention with me. I don't hear or see anything. I'm just looking up. But anyways, am I still online? That's the question. This is Serpent's Hall. This is his mouth. This is where the papacy sits. And in the mouth is is basically a demon. And so that's exactly what the Bible's saying. It says, out of the mouth of the dragon comes these spirits of devils working miracles. Yeah, what a display, right? And it's right before our eyes that they're doing this. And of course, the papacy sitting there. And what does the Bible say in Revelation 13, verse 2, right? It says that the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And you can see he's on the seat here in the picture. And this says 1,000 words to us. I'm just getting into Bible prophecy just to share with you a little bit. And I hope that you're all catching all that I'm saying here. But I want to go back to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 11, which we've already read about him exalting this strange God. In Daniel 11, verse 39, it says, he shall exalt this strange God, which is the Trinity. And at the time of the end, which is 1798, the king of the south, which I believe to be spiritually Egypt, which is France, the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships. Now, this is all going to make sense in a second. I'm going to share with you what this means here. But this is what's happening here. He shall enter in a glorious land. Many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, Edom, Moab, and Ammon, the Ammonites. I could share what all these means, but I want to get to some points here that are just going to open our eyes really clearly. He stretched forth his hand also upon the countries. The land of Egypt shall not escape, but he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver. Who's going to have power over the economy at the end? It's the papacy, right? And over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and Ethiopians shall be at his steps. Now let's just consider his steps here. He's got some steps that he wants. And he's going to have power over gold and silver and all these other things. Just consider this all, because this all relates to Bible prophecy. No man might buy or sell save he that has the name, number, or mark of the beast. Let's keep going here. Considering in light of this man wants to sit in the throne of God, exalting himself so that he as God sits in the temple of God, saying he is God, basically. But then he exalts a strange God, of course. And he said he's God in many, many documents. But of course, he exalts a strange God, which is the Trinity. That's the papacy. And you can see the angels on the sides, which is basically the sides. You know, when you think of the Ark of the Covenant, there's 2 covering cherubs, and they cover the holy seat, the mercy seat, where God's throne is. Well, who do we have sitting on a throne here? Is the Pope in the midst of 2 angels. This is total blasphemy. And then, of course, they shall be at his steps. It implies he has power of some sort. But the Pope has a prescription, according to the World Economic Forum, for resetting the global economy in response to COVID-19. So there's a prescription to reset, the Great Reset. Some of you know the Great Reset, but who's behind the Great Reset? The Pope. The Pope, the World Economic Forum, of course, is behind it, but who has to have control over these things? What does the Bible say? It says that there's a woman who has power, and she's given power by the kings of the earth. Kings of the earth, Klaus Schwab and company, right? But what does Klaus Schwab tell us? He tells us at the 22 World Economic Forum, the future is built by us, by a powerful community, as you hear, see in this room. Anybody remember somebody else who said, oh, look at this great kingdom which I have built? Anybody know who that was? That was a king of Babylon that said something like that. Anybody know which king it was? Which king was it that said, look at this great kingdom which I have built? Is Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And he was full of pride, and that was the moment where, he lost his speech. He ended up eating grass. And one of these days, this man is going to learn very quickly who he is. But it's not just this man who's saying this. He's not the only one thinking that the future is built by us. We build back better. You've heard all the slogans and all these things. This counterfeit Babylonish kingdom that they think they're building back better, telling us they are anyway. Obviously, it's not looking too good. But the Vatican Task Force says millions risk hunger problems during pandemic and calls for creative solidarity to solve global problems. Now watch, this is the same thing as Klaus Schwab just said. I'm going to read the purple part. It's talking about problems related to the economy, unemployment, healthcare, protection of the environment. The task force was set up by Pope Francis to address the grave humanitarian crisis caused by the current pandemic and to influence the formation of a new post-pandemic world order. So there's a task force to deal with the economy, deal with the environment, and to deal with health. This task force. It says human development said that in one of the task force's recent meetings with Pope Francis, he asked us to prepare the future. Not prepare for the future, that is prepare it and anticipate it. Basically, build the future. We build the future. Does that sound like someone that we just heard? That's exactly what Klaus Schwab said. The future is built by us. It's the same spirit as Nebuchadnezzar had when he said, look at this great kingdom which I have built. And Jesus said, if my kingdom were of this world, I'd wear a crown like the Pope and I'd sit on a throne like the Pope and say, this is my kingdom. But he said, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. Did the papacy have a kingdom in this world? Did his servants fight? Did they not? Did they not fight to establish a kingdom in this world? They fought and destroyed many trying to establish this kingdom. But listen, task force set up by the Pope to develop a new post-pandemic world order. He wants to strategize to build the future. He wants to build a new economic system. Okay, let's just keep going here. I want to share, but this is not just the Pope's vision. This is, of course, the same vision that is shared by Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations. They're all building together. Build back better.
To ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever. We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
To my plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, written after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
Unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
I'm going to pause it right here. I want you to notice this lady here. She's the president of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And Her name is Christina Georgiev. I'm going to share with you a little bit more on her here in a second. And I want this all is going to connect to Bible prophecy, but basically it is the people who are resetting a global economy, and they're working together, of course, with the Pope. They are working together with the papacy, and you're going to see how they're working together here in a second.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, "Build Back Better," a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better. Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are
the United
fundamental to
Nations.
building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort some would say to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
Well, so there is an idea that they have planned in regards to what they're going to build here. I'm going to share a little bit more. This lady here talks about it. This is
order is always the financial system.
oh, I can't remember her name.
I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in 71. And so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private. But what I see.
Okay, I want to get to some points here, but obviously you guys can see what's coming, and she calls it a new global world order. And this is the United Nations. They've divided it into 10. I want you just to keep this in mind because I want to get into the Bible prophecy, the last parts of this, because they are so important to understand. But Revelation chapter 7 tells us the 10 horns, what you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. We're looking at a monarchy of some sort, some rulership that is not very like the beast in Revelation 13 that had 2 horns and no crowns, right? But this beast has 10 horns, and these 10 horns are going to receive crowns eventually. They're going to have power. And this is the last kingdom to come. This is the United Nations. These will have one mind. They are united. United kings, united nations. They give their power and strength to the dragon, which is the beast, the king, and these shall make war with the Lamb. That's what's coming here. This is the last power. And as you can see here, I want to share with you this picture. This is a United Nations picture of the United States. Of course, it's a foreign government map, but they have mapped out the United States. It's called the Wildlands Project. It's where they want to control and make free 30% of the land. They want you not to be locked into 15-minute cities. You'll see all the red zones are going to be off limits to humans, as it says in the red left corner there. Little to no human use. You won't be allowed to travel to see your families anymore because those highways will be off limits to humans. And the yellow zones will be buffer zones. Highly regulated use means they're going to watch every move that you make, every transaction that you make. You're going to be controlled. There's a time of trouble coming, such as never was. That's what the Bible says. But notice this is the Convention on Biological Diversity Wildlands Project. Now, I'm not going to go into that too much. The papacy, the Pope, has talked much about this. He's very excited about it, I will tell you that. But you go look up the Pope and biodiversity, you'll see what he talks about. But this is COP15. This was last November 26, 2022. And they had a summit in Montreal, the COP15 Biodiversity Summit, to be fenced off amid concerns. Its 3030 initiative promotes militarized conservationism. What is 3030? Well, let me just explain what 3030 means, okay? First off, you have 2030. In 2030, it's called the 2030 Climate Agenda by the United Nations. By 2030, they expect to have 30% of the land completely barred off and controlled so that you're not allowed to access 30% of the land, as this biological diversity project shows you. There's going to be no access by humans, okay? And they're going to be militarized. Military is going to be on the outskirts of all your cities, controlling you, keeping you locked in the cities. And there is a message for Babylon, which is instead of come out of her, it's into the cities. It's the 15-minute cities, right? And this, of course, is all working together with the papacy. Now, I'll explain a little bit more. But Pope Francis calls for global COVID-19 recovery plan in message to the World Bank and the IMF. Why is the Pope giving messages to the banks and the International Monetary Fund? Why does he have control? Remember, I just mentioned Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the IMF. She wants to thank the Pope and the Pontifical Academy of Social Science for inviting her to a workshop. And she's addressing the Pope, the ministers, the guests here. And she says, here's the question. What are the new priorities for the global economy? Let me give you the short answer. In the words of Pope Francis, the first task is to put the economy at the service of the people. So it's moving towards this economy. This economy is going to be moved, and it's the papacy is all behind it. Now, you can go to a website called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, which the Vatican has launched. And you can go on there, you can look at all the names that are on there, the head of Visa, the head of PayPal, the head of a bunch of World Bank's heads, all working together, Ford Motor Companies, other people like that, high people in higher up positions. And they're all working for what is called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism with the Vatican. And what was my study title today? The exclusive economy. It's not going to be inclusive to everybody. You must be included. And the only way that you're included is if you take the mark of the beast. What's the Bible say? The Bible says in Revelation chapter 13, it says this, it says no man might buy or sell. This is not inclusive. This is exclusive. Save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So the opposite of inclusive is exclusive. And the only way that you're included is if you have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. I'm not sure if somebody's going to unplug that. Give me a second, 1 second. You unplug this? Thank you. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, guys. But save he that had the mark of the beast or the number of his name. Here's wisdom, let him that have understanding count the number of the beast. So we're going back here. Inclusive capitalism with the Vatican launches. We've talked about this before. Inclusive capitalism. It's all inclusive unless you don't go along with their agenda, which includes, of course, exclusiveness. But central bank digital currencies for financial inclusion, risks and rewards. This is the title of a video that is on the IMF page on YouTube, IMF, and it's called Financial Inclusion, which means there will be financial exclusion. Continuing on, let me just play this video here.
Information provision that covers for people how not using cash is better to protect yourself against crime, and how if you use digital money, you can graduate from payments to credit. And that, of course, enhances financial inclusion.
So you will have financial inclusion. You can graduate in this system, but if you don't go along with certain things, maybe you don't want to get their shots or whatever they might have for you that might help your health or benefit you or whatever, like you're going to be standing up here and have tests very similar to what they had in ancient Babylon. They're gonna force you to eat the king's meat, drink the king's wine, put the pharmacy in you, whatever it is. Those are tests that are all coming to God's people. We're going to have all these tests, lots of tests. Are you ready for these tests as God's people? But not just that, but of course, they're going to force this worship. If you bow down to the image of the beast, you go along with things, then of course, you will be allowed to be included into this coming economy. Very few will be allowed to be included, but you probably won't be included. It doesn't matter how much you want to bow down and keep Sunday and do all the other things that they want you to do. But Pope Francis, of course, gives his blessing to the Council for inclusive capitalism and big businesses and finances working together with the Vatican together to move this. And what does she say this is likened to? And this all relates to Bible prophecy. I want you to hear this.
Bear with me on giving you an image and then outlining 3 priorities for CBDCs to help.
CBDC
image. We have been.
Let me just share with you what CBDC means. It means central bank digital currency. It means a digital currency is coming. So they're moving from a currency that has paper and other things like that, gold, all that other stuff, to just central bank digital currency where everything will be monitored. And so this is what she likens it to. Listen carefully.
In talking this last couple of days of the difficult time we are in, that our world economy is like a ship in choppy waters. Well, the image we can add to it is thinking of CBDCs as being a new fleet of ships.
Fleet of ships. I find this so interesting. When you think about it, what is the economy likened to? A fleet of ships. I want to go to the Bible again, Revelation chapter 18 again. And this is just the Bible telling you this. It says that the merchants of the earth wax rich through the abundance of her delicacies. But furthermore, you go down here a little bit, and it says that in verse 11, the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. In other words, they're going to have some major problems with their economy that's coming. The merchandise of gold and silver, the precious stones of pearls and fine linen, purple, scarlet, etc. I'm not going to go into all the things that are listed here, but they have a lot of things listed with regards to the gold, silver, and all that. But it says, the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all the things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to nothing. Now listen what this is likened to. It says, every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many as trade, that means buy or sell, by sea, stood afar off. And they cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what is like unto this great city? You're about to watch some burning take place. And what is about to happen is that the economy is going to collapse. And they're going to move into this, and this is likened to many ships. And the ships, what are the ships going to do? They're going to stand afar off. They're going to look at what is happening. And that's what this is likened to. It's a prophecy that's going to come to pass. And it says they cast dust on their heads, they're weeping, they're wailing, saying, Alas, the great city wherein was made rich, all the ships, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Remember the abomination that make it desolate, the church and state union that they're trying to have to control the economy? Well, guess what? It's not going to work out for the papacy very well. And then they're going to turn on the papacy. They're going to burn her with fire, right? They're not going to be too happy with her, you know? But what are we to do when we see this all? What is God's people going to be doing when we see the economy collapse and everything's gone to hell and the sky is fallen and everything like that? What are God's people going to do in this situation? Well, it says, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, cast it in the sea, saying thus with violence, shall that great Babylon be thrown down, shall be found no more at all in thee. It's not going to be a pretty situation, but I want to bring you to the book of Daniel for a second, just to give you an idea of where this is written in book of Daniel. I got a few things I want to share with you, so do not go yet. Do not go yet. This is so important to understand. Daniel 11, we're going to go back to verse 40, and it talks about the king of the north. And who is the king of the north according to the book of Jeremiah, right? You can see that you shall come like a whirlwind with chariots, with horsemen, and with, what's he going to have with them? Many ships. Interesting. The ships are representative of economy. He shall have power over the gold and silver, right? Many ships. Okay. He's coming with chariots, with horsemen, with armies. You know what the Bible says? The 10 horns shall make her desolate. This is your abomination of desolation. He's coming like a whirlwind. Now just let me continue here. I want to go down a bit. What does it say here? When Pope Francis came in 2015, he came to Congress. He spoke before Congress in Washington, D.C. And then he went to New York City to the United Nations, and they raised the Vatican flag. And they were calling the Pope's visit the big thing. It was like a giant thing that was made all over the news. I'm sure some of you remember, but it was called Pope Francis' Whirlwind New York Tour. That's according to the Catholic of New York. Now, is it just the Catholic of New York? Let's just continue. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette called it the whirlwind visit from Pope Francis. Whirlwind visit. Interesting. Also, the CBS of New York called it Pope's Whirlwind New York Tour. You can see the title of this video, Whirlwind New York Tour. And then what about this one? The Telegraph, read down below. Pope Francis spent a whirlwind U.S. visit, bridging the realms of the disadvantaged next elite. What else? Eyewitness News 7, ABC, Pope Francis whirlwind visit to disrupt transportation and business. Access WDUN. Pope Francis makes a big impression in whirlwind visit of New York City. Highlight New York Times, a whirlwind papal journey concludes. Now let's just put this together. What was he getting power over? Was he not getting power over chariots, ships, economies, chariots, horsemen, and ships, right? Armies. Arms shall stand on his part, and they shall make her desolate. The 10 horns shall make her desolate. You read Daniel, you understand the abomination of desolation, that this is exactly what this is. And when you see this, what was the call? Come out of the cities, my people. Come out of Babylon, my people. Flee out of Judea, my people. Understand, don't miss this sign, Jesus said. This is an abomination to make her desolate. Church and state union. Most of us have missed the sign, and we don't understand what's coming next. And I'm going to share with you what's coming next. And sadly, not many people are ready or getting ready. Not many people put everything into God's hands yet. Everything must be put into God's hands. If you're here today, praise God. But this continues on. You can see CBS New York, Pope's Whirlwind New York Tour comes to an end. What does it say? The king shall do according to his will, exalt himself, speak marvelous things against the God of gods. He'll do in the most with a strange God. He increased with glory, the Trinity, right? We've seen that concerning the most exalted Trinity in the Catholic faith, that no one should dare to publicly oppose him. This was the Justinian Code. This is what started the 1260 years, was this implementation of this doctrine after the Ostrogoths were defeated, the third horn in Daniel 7:24. And then he had 1260 years to rule the world, and this was the law of the land, that no one should dare to publicly speak against this God. What's it say in Daniel 11:39? He shall increase this God with glory. Exalted Trinity. You know, Ellen White wrote about this. She said regarding this king who did according to his will, she said that this compromise between paganism and Christianity resulted in the development of the man of sin, the papacy, foretold in prophecy as opposing and exalting himself above God. That gigantic system of false religion is a masterpiece of Satan's power, a monument of his efforts to seat himself upon the throne and rule the earth according to his will. It's the papacy, right? The man of sin. You can read the context in Great Controversy, page 50, but she says Daniel says the king shall do according to his will. An understanding of it, that it referred to the man of sin that Paul talked about in 2 Thessalonians 2. But some people think this king that does according to his will is somebody else. I know a lot of Adventists do. Daniel and the Revelation, they read, and they read this book by Uriah Smith, and it says the king here introduced cannot denote the same power which was last noticed, namely the papal power. Unfortunately, Uriah Smith came to some ideas that were contrary to the great controversy and the truth about Revelation, the man of sin. He didn't believe it was the papal power. He didn't believe it was the man of sin. And in verse 36 of his book, he goes off, and I don't know if anybody's ever studied Daniel and the Revelation, but I don't agree with verse 36 to verse 45. I don't agree with his interpretation of that. And he's wrong, starting with verse 36. He's wrong in not referring this to the papacy. It is the papacy, according to Great Controversy, page 50. So some of you might have an issue with me because I don't agree with Uriah Smith. A lot of people are using these books today. They're trying to say Turkey is going to come and they're going to be the ones that come into Jerusalem, and that's the abomination to make it desolate. I don't agree with all those teachings. I don't. I believe it's a distraction. And I believe that the abomination of desolation has to do when the papacy got power in 2015, and that there's a call to come out of the cities. And Jesus told us not to misunderstand it. And I believe that time is running out, and those people waiting for Turkey to come are going to miss out on Bible prophecy, and they're not going to get the loud cry, and they're not going to give the loud cry because of it. And the devil's deceiving people into not giving the loud cry because of their misunderstanding of this great prophecy. Like, a lot of it is Daniel and the Revelation, but there's a sign. I want to share with you the sign. I'm going to share with you from the Bible, Matthew 24. This is a sign spoken of by Daniel in the book of Daniel, chapter 11, a sign just before the time of trouble. You go to Matthew 24, and I'll just briefly share this, okay? The disciples asked him, what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? So he says, oh, there's going to be nations rising against nation, sorrows, and he says, the end is not yet. And then he says in verse 14, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the world for witness to all nations, then shall the end come. And what's the sign? Well, it's right here in verse 15. When you therefore shall see this sign, the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Don't misunderstand this one. And then flee out of Judea, just like it's like Babylon. Flee out of Babylon. So this was likened to what happened in 70 AD. There was a sign given to the people when the armies were surrounding Jerusalem. There was a sign, come out of her, my people, get out before the destruction comes. And they had 3.5 years of time. They had time period given for them before the Romans came back and burnt the city with fire. And the same is true at the end, that God has given us a little bit of time before the Romans come back, and they're going to burn all the cities. Babylon shall be burnt with fire, and the merchants and the kings of the earth, and they're all going to stand afar off, watching the burning, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. She's made desolate by the 10 horns. It says in Revelation 17:16, her church and state union is a church and state union that makes desolate. The 10 horns shall make her desolate. And so there's a call, flee out of Judea, come out of Babylon. And then what happens right after that? Pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall be a great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. This is Daniel chapter 12, right here. Then shall be a time of trouble, such as never was. That's Daniel 12:1. If you understand and know your verses in your Bible, you know what this is referring to. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was. That's exactly what he's saying, speaking about. And the abomination of desolation happens just before this, as mentioned in verse 15 of Matthew 24. So you see it. He's going to gather chariots, horsemen, and ships. It's very similar to what happened in verse 31 with Clovis in the old days. The armies would stand on his part. They'd place the abomination to make it desolate. It's an abomination to make it desolate. And then verse 40 is the same thing. Come like a whirlwind, abomination to make it desolate. Church and state union, ships, horsemen, armies standing on his part again. And there's a come out of her, my people message when you see it. Now, did Ellen White know about this sign spoken of by Daniel the prophet? Did she understand what it was? Did she understand the sign of the end? Did she understand the abomination to make it desolate? Yes, she did. Listen to what she says about the sign of the end. spoken of by Daniel the prophet. She says this. She doesn't say when Turkey comes and sits in Jerusalem. She says this. She says, when Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power. Have we seen this? Absolutely. We had a Protestant government in the United States. They're grasping the hand of the Roman power like we've never seen before. When she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism. When under the influence of this threefold union, that's Revelation 16:13, right? The beast, the papacy, the false prophet, and the dragon, devil, and his angels, spiritualism. When under the influence of this threefold union, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant and Republican government. You can't be Protestant when you got the Pope speaking in Congress. And shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions, then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan, and that the end is near. What's a sign of the end, guys? What's a sign of the end? The end is near. Well, just as the approach of the Roman army, she says, was a sign to the disciples of the impending destruction of Jerusalem, so may this apostasy be a sign to us that the limit of God's forbearance is reached. What will be the sign of the end, according to Ellen White? What will be the sign of the end? The threefold union. She didn't say it was Turkey, right? She didn't say the sign of the end spoken of by Daniel, the abomination of desolation, was Turkey. She said this was a sign of the end. When the Roman power shall reach over, grasp the hand of our apostate Protestant government, and the Constitution shall be repudiated. She said that so may this apostasy be a sign that the limit of God's forbearance is reached, that the measure of our nation's iniquity is full, and that the angel of mercy is about to take her flight, never to return. The people of God would then be plunged into those scenes of affliction and distress, which prophets have described as the time of Jacob's trouble. Oh, time of trouble. Matthew 24:21. Troublous times such as never was. Daniel 12:1, right there. So you see, abomination of desolation, which has to do with the threefold union, and then we see the time of trouble follows right at that point. This is our sign to come out of the cities, come out, just as it was a sign to them of the Roman armies, that when the Roman armies were surrounding Jerusalem, to flee out of Judea. It's a sign of the end to come out of the fallen Babylon, right? This is Babylon fallen. She's fornicating with the kings of the earth. That's what the Bible teaches. And so there was a great understanding by this woman. It's just incredible that she could foresee this. But again, I'm going to come back. 39-hour whirlwind visit. The whirlwind spoken of by Daniel the prophet, right? The whirlwind gathering armies, ships, horsemen, gathering the kings of the earth, making war. Whirlwind of events. Pope leaves New York City in a whirlwind of events. Whirlwind trip. Pope Francis, Fox 6. Whirlwind day. Catholic News Agency, USA. Do you think we got enough to prove it? Pope Francis tired after whirlwind, limping a bit. USA Today. Wall Street Journal. Whirlwind tour of New York City winds down. At the time of the end, the king of the south would push at him, which is Egypt. Then the king of the north shall come. I know the words against him are not in the original, but it says, come like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, with many ships. He shall enter the country, shall overflow and pass over. As God's people, we should be giving a loud cry right now. I'd say that the time is running very, very short, and CBDC is about to be implemented. The cities are about to become lockdown cities, climate lockdown cities. There's a message come out of the cities before it's too late. And as God's people, we need to be discerning. Verse 43, shall have power over the treasure of gold and silver. No man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name or the number of the beast. He has power. This is the papacy that's talking about. He's the main character in Bible prophecy, working together with the United Nations. It's all foretold. The Council for Inclusive Capitalism with the Vatican. And they're working together as a unit to push their ideas, to push their agendas, to push their Build Back Better Babylonian message on us, to push all of their ideas on us, and to force us into their new world economic order, which they are pushing upon us. As God's people, may God give us discernment to understand these things, to realize that the time is now, the call is now. And for those who aren't coming to the meetings on Wednesday night, I call you to come to these meetings on Wednesday night for our Bible studies. They are so important. To understand these events, you need to understand Bible prophecy. And you need to understand particularly the truth about God's covenants. These are important truths, and they all respect the ideas of righteousness by faith, the cross of Christ, and everything that relates to your salvation, because it's not just necessary to come out of the cities, but it's also necessary to have an understanding of the cross of Christ and understand why and who is with you, and that with him and without him we can do nothing, that all things are by him, and he gives us understanding in everything that we have, and therefore we can trust him and we can give everything in our lives to him and not be holding on to any sins. And the meeting last night, we talked about that as well, and what it is to truly trust God, what it was to be born again, to really accept the Spirit of Christ into your heart, and to believe that he lives inside of you. Some people asked some questions, good questions last night, and we had a great study last night. We have it on 7:30 Wednesday night. And for anybody who would love to join us, we'd love to have you. Okay. And it's same link you used today to join the Zoom meeting. If you're on YouTube or whatever right now, there's a link underneath. That is the link to the Zoom. If you don't get the links in your email, which I usually email out, you can email me at dbarron@gmx.com and just send me an email and let me know to add you to the email list. If you're not getting the emails, if you get the emails for Sabbath, you'll get the emails for Wednesday, because I email the same email list. Okay. So anyways, yeah, for anybody that is, you fall back in time tonight, daylight savings? Yes, we do. Actually, we do. So it will be, we do have daylight savings time here, and we're Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's our time for the meetings. Anyway, guys, happy Sabbath, blessed Sabbath. Glad you're all with me. I'm going to end this stream, but for anybody who wants to join the after study and just has any questions or anything like that, we're welcome to share. You're welcome to give a couple questions if you want. If you have anything to say with regards to study, feel free to add a couple comments. All right. And you just have to raise your hand. But before we do, I'd just like to have a prayer. If we can just bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you, Father, for being with us today. We ask you, Father, that you might give us your Holy Spirit as we come to understand these things more and more, especially as the day is approaching. The light is becoming brighter and brighter, especially with your truth. And Father, you said if we continue in your word, we will know the truth, and the truth will make us free. And we desire the freedom that you give, the freedom that is from your kingdom, the Jerusalem above, which is free. And we thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Just give me a second here. I'm going to end the live stream.